actually works.
Yeah.
And not just works, but works well.
Works well. Exactly. And we're going to be talking about two main categories of software testing, really two sides of the same coin.
Right.
We've got functional testing. This is checking what the software does, right?
Right.
And then we've got non-functional testing,
Okay.
which is all about how well it does it.
Gotcha.
And understanding that difference is really kind of the bedrock of getting a handle on quality in software.
Makes sense. So mission today is to like equip you with kind of the core principles here.
Yeah.
So whether you're like walking into a meeting about a new app, or you're just trying to like figure out what the heck your company is using, or if you're just curious, like, how does software even work?
Yeah.
We're going to break it down.
Absolutely.
Simple examples and tell you why it matters.
For sure.
So let's unpack this thing. Let's start with functional testing.
Okay, so functional testing at its heart is all about, verifying an application's features, making sure that it works as it's supposed to, according to whatever's been documented, the requirements. It really boils down to, does the software do what it's supposed to?
Right.
And ultimately, you're making sure that it fulfills those needs, those business needs, that it was designed to address.
So give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you're on your favorite e-commerce site, right?
Yeah.
Functional testing is like all that work behind the scenes.
Okay.
That makes sure that you can log in, browse the catalog, add stuff to your cart, all that. And then even more importantly, when you go to check out, make sure that process is smooth.
Yeah.
Make sure your payment goes through and it all works.
Right. Seamless. You don't even notice it.
You don't notice it. It's like the plumbing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's all working behind the scenes.
Right.
And the goal here is to catch those defects, those glitches, before the software gets out into the wild.
Oh, yeah. You want to catch it before everybody's
Exactly.
using it. Okay. So how do we do this? How do we make sure that it's working?
So there's a lot of different techniques that you can use throughout the development process.
Okay.
One of the first ones is something called unit testing.
Okay.
And this is really about testing the individual pieces, the little modules of the software in isolation.
Gotcha.
And this is usually done by the developers.
Okay.
So if you've got, let's say, a function on your e-commerce site to calculate sales tax, the unit testing is making sure that that little function actually calculates the right tax.
Okay.
No matter what the conditions are.
Gotcha.
Different scenarios, different states, whatever it might be.
So it's almost like a chef who tastes all the different sauces before they combine them in the dish or something?
Absolutely. Make sure the ingredients are right before you put the whole thing together.
And then what's next?
Okay, so then you've got integration testing.
Okay.
This is about how do all the different pieces work together?
Gotcha.
Because even if each individual piece works on its own, when you stick them together, things can go wrong.
Right.
So going back to our e-commerce example, making sure that the shopping cart talks to the inventory system. When you add an item to your cart or the payment gateway, actually talks to the order system. When you enter your payment details. It's all about those connections. And the flow of information between them.
It's like you could have a really great engine and a really fancy set of tires.
Right.
But if they're not connected to the chassis of the car, it's not going to work.
It's not going anywhere.
Okay. So then what's next? So we've made sure that the pieces work, they talk to each other. What happens next?
Then you've got something called system testing. And this is where you're really taking the whole application. And you're validating it against those initial requirements, saying, does it actually work as a whole? Not just the pieces, but the whole thing. So you're looking at end-to-end user journeys. Does it actually fulfill its purpose?
Okay, so it's like we've looked at the individual parts under a microscope. We've checked how they interact. We've looked at the machine as a whole. Now what?
Okay, so the last stage that we'll talk about is acceptance testing.
Okay.
And this is usually done by the end users.
Okay.
Or the client who requested the software. And this is really about them saying, yep, this meets our needs. We're ready to go.
It's
the final stamp of approval.
Okay, so those are the techniques. What are we actually testing, though?
Oh, yeah, we've got to get down into the specifics.
Yeah, what are the things?
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, what are the things that we're looking at?
Okay, so one super common and super important thing is login features. You want to make sure that people can log in with the right username and password. But you also want to make sure that they can't log in if they've got the wrong information.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you get the right error message Is the system secure?
Right.
Preventing that unauthorized access. That's really key.
That's huge, right? Because you don't want people getting into other people's...
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so what else are we testing?
Okay, so another big one is form submission.
Okay.
So think about any time you fill out a form online.
Yeah.
Registration forms, contact form.
Order forms, yeah.
Order forms, all that. Functional testing, make sure that when you type in that information,
Yeah.
it gets processed correctly. Are you filling in all the required fields?
Right.
Is the format correct? Like a valid email address?
Yeah.
Is the information saved correctly?
Yeah.
Transmitted where it needs to go? We've all had that frustration.
Oh, yeah.
Where you fill out a form
And it doesn't work.
and it just doesn't take it.
Yeah, so frustrating.
Super frustrating.
Okay, what else? What else are we looking at here?
Okay, so search functionality is huge, especially if you think about e-commerce sites. Anything with a lot of content.
Right.
You want to make sure that when somebody types something into that search bar,
Yeah.
they get back the right results. So if I search for red shoes on your website,
Yeah.
I better be seeing red shoes.
Right.
Not blue hats or something totally random.
Yeah.
The system has to understand what I'm looking for and then give me the right stuff back.
Totally. And then the last one we had on the list was checkout process.
Oh, yeah, that's mission critical, especially for e-commerce.
Right. I mean, if that's not working right,
Yeah.
that's a problem. So what are we doing there?
So this is really about making sure that from the moment someone adds something to their cart
Yeah.
to the moment they finish paying, everything works perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Applying discounts, calculating shipping,
Right.
handling payment securely, placing the order,
Making sure you get the confirmation.
confirmation, all of it.
Yeah, that's huge.
That smooth, reliable, secure process.
Yeah.
That's really what makes or breaks an online business.
Totally. Okay, so that's a pretty good overview, I think, of functional testing. Like the purpose, the techniques, examples. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about non-functional testing.
All right, let's do it.
This is where I think it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about does it work, but how well does it work?
Exactly. And it's looking at all those quality attributes
Okay.
that aren't necessarily tied to a specific feature or function.
Right.
So we're talking about performance, security, usability, reliability, all of these things that really affect how good the user experience is,
Right.
how robust and stable the whole system is.
And I think this is where it gets interesting because you can have an app that like works.
Right.
It sends an email.
Yeah.
It does what it's supposed to do. But if it takes 5 minutes to open the email or
Exactly.
there's all these security vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
it's not really a good app.
It's not a good app. It might be functional.
Right. But it's not a high quality app.
Right. And I think a lot of user dissatisfaction comes from non-functional stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you've got a website, right?
Mhm.
The login works perfectly. Great. Functional.
Right.
But then every page takes 20 seconds to load.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the worst.
That's a non-functional problem. That's performance.
Right.
People are going to leave that site.
Yeah, it's so
No matter how
frustrating.
good that login was, it doesn't even matter. Or let's say you've got a banking app, right?
Yep.
Transfers money accurately. Awesome. That's functional.
Mm-hmm.
But then the security's weak and someone can hack into your account.
Yeah.
That's a major problem.
On functional security.
Yeah.
Huge problem.
Right. So functional testing is does it work? Non-functional testing is does it work well?
That's it.
Okay. So what are the different categories we need to be aware of?
Okay, so there's a bunch of really important categories here. Let's start with performance testing. This is all about how the system handles different levels of load.
Okay.
Both what you'd expect to see on a normal day, but also those peak times,
Right.
when everybody's trying to use it at the same time. How responsive is it?
Right.
How stable is it? Can it handle all those people without crashing?
Without slowing down or...
Without slowing down, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about, Black Friday.
Yeah.
You've got millions of people
Trying to buy things
hitting that website.
at the same time.
You've got to make sure that the servers can handle it.
Yeah.
So that's a good example of performance testing.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that you're ready for the rush, right?
Absolutely.
So what else? What's next?
Okay, so then you've got security testing.
Okay.
This is all about finding those vulnerabilities
Okay.
in the system, making sure that your data
Yeah.
is protected from unauthorized access, right?
Right.
So you're trying to find those weaknesses,
Yeah.
those loopholes that some bad actor
Could take advantage of.
could take advantage of.
Yeah.
So we're talking about preventing hacking,
Data breaches.
data breaches, all that stuff.
Huge.
Yeah, huge consequences if that goes wrong.
Okay, what else?
All right, so we've got usability testing.
Okay.
This is all about how easy is the software to use,
Yeah.
right? Does it make sense to the average person?
Right.
Can people navigate it easily?
Find what they need.
Find what they need.
Yeah.
And you actually do this. You watch people
Oh, wow.
using the software and get their feedback.
Okay.
Where do they get stuck? What's confusing?
Yeah.
Because if your software is too hard to use,
It doesn't matter if it works.
it doesn't matter if it works.
No one's going to use it.
People are going to give up.
Yeah, for sure. What's next?
Okay, so then we got reliability testing.
Okay.
This is all about making sure that the software can just run without breaking down
Okay.
over a certain period of time.
Right.
Minimize that downtime.
Right. Right.
You don't have to restart your computer.
Nobody wants their work to disappear.
Yeah. Right. Nobody wants to lose their data or have to start all over again.
Especially if it's like, mission critical software.
Absolutely. Business software. You can't have that crashing in the middle of something important.
Yeah. Unplanned downtime is a nightmare.
It's a huge cost to businesses too.
Yeah, totally. So how about like making sure that it works on all the different devices and all the different browsers?
Oh, yeah. That's compatibility testing.
Okay.
Right. Making sure that your software works, whether you're on a desktop,
A laptop.
a tablet, your phone,
Mm-hmm.
different browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari,
Edge, right.
Edge, you name it.
To different operating systems.
Windows, Mac, iOS, Android.
Yeah,
It has to work across the board
that's so important.
because these days, everybody's using a different mix of stuff.
Right. It's like a given.
You can't assume everyone's on the same setup anymore.
Totally. And then the last one I think we had was scalability testing.
Yeah, so scalability testing. This is about how well your system can grow.
Okay.
Can it adapt to more users, more data,
More traffic.
more traffic, higher load, all of that?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, can the infrastructure, the architecture, handle that growth
Yeah.
without everything slowing down or falling apart?
Yeah.
It's really about thinking long term.
Yeah, for sure. So to recap quickly, we've got the what of the software, the functional testing,
Yeah.
making sure it does what it's supposed to, and then the how well, which is all this non-functional testing.
Okay, sorry.
Performance security, usability, reliability, compatibility, scalability. It seems like you need both.
You absolutely do.
You can't have one without the other.
They're interconnected.
Okay.
Non-functional testing is really about making sure that the user experience is smooth
Yeah.
and positive. It's about catching those security vulnerabilities
Right.
before they become a problem. It's about making sure the system can grow, it can handle the demands,
Mm-hmm.
and staying reliable.
Right.
So you don't have those downtime issues. And in a lot of industries,
Right.
you actually have compliance standards and legal stuff,
Yeah.
security regulations
Yeah.
that require you to do this kind of testing.
Gotcha. So functional testing, it does the right things. Non-functional, it does the things right.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so like two sides of the same coin, really important.
Sales.
Making good software that people actually want to use.
And software that businesses can rely on.
Exactly. And for you listening, like understanding this stuff gives you a framework to evaluate software.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking at a product or you're just trying to understand how it was built.
It's about having that bigger picture,
Right.
that understanding of quality.
Yeah, and understanding that quality isn't just about features.
Exactly. It's about the whole package.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the world of software testing.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
But before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about. Considering everything we've talked about, functional, non-functional, all these different pieces, what do you think is the most overlooked part of this whole process?
Yeah, it's a good question.
What are the things that we're maybe not paying enough attention to, and what are the consequences of that?
Right, and how do we balance building new features quickly
Yeah.
with making sure the software is high quality and secure? Something to ponder.
Yeah. Food for thought.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Absolutely.